The following program has been rated GE by the Kenya Film Classification Board. It is therefore suitable for general family viewing.
Hello viewer, welcome to Chungu cha Jamii. I'm your host Eunice Mugo. Today on the show we're talking about importance of premarital counseling. Why is it important to go for a counseling before you get married? Send in your question, your comments across all our social media networks. That's GBS TV Africa. Our SMS line is 21144. I'm not alone. I have a guest with me who is going to help us to understand better why it is important to go for a premarital counseling. I will allow him to introduce himself. Welcome, guest.
Thank you so much. My name is James Kituzi. I am a life coach and also a personal and corporate development consultant. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you so much for honoring our invite, Mr. James. It's always a pleasure having you on the set.
Great.
So today, as we were talking about the importance of premarital counseling, what is premarital counseling to start with?
First of all, it's important to demystify the myths that people have in and around counseling itself. Because most people, when they hear the word counseling, whatever form it is, whether it is premarital, marital, or psychological counseling, what comes to their mind is maybe craziness, or somebody who has lost their mind and they can't cope with life, and so that person is sick, and therefore they need medical attention or something, or they've gone crazy, or even some believe somebody is bewitched, so their head is not working properly. But counseling in itself is actually a good health practice that every healthy human being should engage in.
Okay.
Counseling is not for sick people. Counseling is for every healthy person who cares about their mental wellness. The same way we go for physical checkup, even when you don't feel sick, it is recommended that at least go to the hospital once for a physical examination to ensure that all your body organs are in good working order, and if there are any diseases that might be cropping up, that they are arrested before they get very serious. So counseling also is important when it comes to issues like marriage and any other circumstance in life, be it bereavement. There are those who work in very stressful jobs. Recently we've had the situation with protests in the country, and we've had journalists covering some of these very disturbing news. Those people also need counseling. So if you work in any stressful environment, if you undergo any stressful decision that you need to make in life or critical decision like marriage, then counseling is for you. Now, when you talk about premarital counseling, pre means before, marital related to marriage. Therefore, it's the counseling that you undergo, the guidance that you seek as you prepare to get married. That is how I define premarital counseling. So for anybody who seeks to enter the union called marriage, it is important and healthy for them to go for counseling, to seek advice, to seek guidance, to get to know what am I getting into, what do I need in order to succeed in this union called marriage, what are the mistakes, the pitfalls to avoid, what are the habits I need to start forming even as I prepare to become somebody's wife or somebody's husband. So in a nutshell, that is what premarital counseling is. Yes.
Interesting. When you are talking about the importance and the things that you have just mentioned, what are the critical touch points that should be looked into and talked about in depth so that these couples or these people who are coming for the premarital counseling can understand and have a take home and knowing and something that they could be referring to when they get into marriage?
Okay, that's a very good question. And I like that you used the word in depth because again, premarital counseling should not be, it's not a one session affair. It's not an event. It's actually a process and a journey that you go through. Why is it a process and a journey? Why do you need several sessions? Because when you talk about marriage, there are so many things that are involved. First of all, you're bringing together two people who are totally different, different culture, different beliefs, different norms, different values, different sets of minds, different upbringing and background. So there are two people who are already at conflict, and then you're bringing them together to act and live as one. So that requires that you cover all the ground to ensure that you are actually ready to get into marriage. There are some of the things that you need to talk about. For example, there are simple issues, and then there are what I would call heavy issues that you need to discuss as you prepare for marriage. Simple issues like the differences in personality. It is important to understand who am I marrying, what is their personality type, and what is my personality type. So premarital counseling is not just to prepare for marriage, it's actually to prepare yourself as a person first to be ready for somebody else or to fit into somebody else's life, and to be ready mentally and emotionally to be able to accommodate another human being in your life, because you're bringing another person into your personal space. So you need to be ready for it. And in order to be ready, you need to go through self-awareness. So I'll talk about number one, self-awareness, that you need to know who you are, what is your personality type, what are your strengths, what are your weaknesses, what is your behavior and beliefs about money, what is your behavior and beliefs about faith, what are your beliefs about parenting, how are you brought up. So basically understand yourself first. Second, you need to explore the other personalities. Most times, if you are a sanguine, for example, you'll meet maybe a choleric to be your partner. You need to understand the other personality types. What are their beliefs, what are their strengths, what are their weaknesses? And if they have weaknesses, is that a weakness you're willing to live with? Because as I always say, when it comes to the choice of a marriage partner, it's not about choosing the perfect partner, because that perfect partner does not exist. Maybe in our fantasies and in our dreams, they do exist, and in movies and in soap operas. But in real life, you are actually looking for someone who has weaknesses that you can live with for the rest of your life. So it's important to understand what are the weaknesses of this other person that I'm actually getting myself into a relationship with. And is it a weakness that I can live with? If it's a weakness like short temper, for example, if it's a weakness like impatience, because every personality type has their strengths and their weaknesses. So weaknesses can include things like impatience, things like short temper, all right? Things like indecisiveness. They take too long to make a very simple decision. Like you go to a restaurant and you have to spend 30 minutes deciding what to pick from the menu. So that is a personality type. Is that something you are willing to live with? Because if they can't decide what to eat during a date, they'll also take time to decide which school to take your children to. They also take time to decide where to settle. So you'll need to be giving them time. You discuss an issue today, give it time, let them think about it, let them meditate on it, pray about it before they give you their feedback. For a sanguine, they want their decision right now, made now, like we have the money, why are we not investing? And the choleric, for example, is thinking, this is the thing to do, this is not to do. So they think differently. So understand yourself, understand the other personality. Number two, understand the issues of faith. What are your beliefs about faith? What do you believe in? Because everybody believes in something. Even an atheist believes in something. So what do they believe? What do you believe? Is there a conflict in matters to do with religion? And is that a conflict that you can resolve before marriage? If you're both Christians and probably you go to different denominations, who moves to which church, for example? If one is a Muslim, the other is a Christian, who converts to the other? So these are issues that you have to agree on before you get into marriage. You don't get married, then you start discussing where to go and worship. You should discuss that way before. And that's an issue that you tackle before you get into marriage. The other area you need to discuss is finances and matters related to financial discipline. what are their spending habits? What are your own personal spending habits? Are you a spendthrift? Are you a miser? Are you somebody who likes holding too much onto money? Or are you somebody who likes money too much? What is your relationship with money, and what is their relationship with money? Because this relationship with money, more often than not, will become the source of conflict once you start making financial decisions as a couple. Financial decisions on what car are we buying, where are we settling, which house are we renting, and so on and so forth. So those financial decisions have to be discussed way before you get into marriage. You don't wait until you're a couple then start deciding on how much each of you contributes, for example, towards a family project or a family business. So in addition to finances, the other area that I would suggest people get into is, or discuss in depth, is the issue to do with parenting. There are people who assume that simply because I'm getting married, then we'll have children. And some even have this imagined number of children that they want to have. Have you discussed that with your partner? Do they even want a child in the first place? And at what age do they want a child? How long do they want to wait after your wedding day or whatever season for them to get a child? Do they want a child now? Do they want to wait until later on? Do they have some goals that they need to pursue first before they settle down? So those are things you discuss in premarital counseling. And the most important is what I'd call when life happens. I'm lacking a proper title for it, but when life happens.
Before we get there, Mr.
Yes.
James, let me contradict you. Let me hold you kidogo and ask.
Yes.
All this that you've just mentioned, in my mind, when I'm listening to you, I'm like, are we discussing this in the premarital counseling? Or is it something that you're supposed even to have like a list of the things that you are anticipating in your relationship, in the dating phase, so that by the end of the day, I'm from the school of thought of, during this dating period is when we make those drastic decisions. You already know, these are my deal breakers, these are my non-negotiables, negotiables, these are the things I'm able to cope. As you're saying, you should be able to understand the other personalities. This one, just to ask, am I supposed to know even before we continue running to dating? Because if you are coming in for a premarital counseling, from the school of thought whereby we have already sat and discussed, we are getting married. So we are no longer dating per se, but you're already engaged into committing to marriage.
Yes, and I agree with that, that school of thought. In the sense that by the time you're talking of premarital, it's just before you get married. Meaning there is a lot that has taken place by the time you're coming to that point of premarital counseling. For example, we've gone through friendship, where you're just getting to know each other, exploring each other, and everybody's putting their best foot forward. Then you get into the dating phase and you date. And during the dating phase, it doesn't necessarily mean that all dates lead to marriage.
Sure.
So after the dating phase, that's when now start specializing and discussing, can we get married? That's when the proposal comes in. Then after the proposal, then you get into a stage now that we call courtship. It is during courtship that it's advisable to go now to for premarital counseling, because now you've already selected the one you think is the one, and you're ready to settle with them. So you just want to prepare for that settlement. Yes.
Having said that, do we have, or have you faced instances whereby this couple A coming in that courtship period, and they are now starting the counseling session that is leading to marriage? Those who come and they succeed fruitfully, and now they're living happily. And have you ever also experienced cases whereby they come in and they learn each other during that process, and they realize this one is goes on for me, this one is not going to work, and they decide to call it quits at that stage?
Yeah, actually, just the fact that you are in courtship doesn't also automatically mean you'll get married.
Sure.
So there are couples who go through premarital counseling, and then they realize they break the deal for marriage, or they pause it because they realize, I am not ready. or they realize the other person is not ready for me, or there are things that I've discovered during this period that I'd call deal breakers, that this one I can't do. For example, when I said, when you're getting married, you're choosing actually somebody whose weaknesses you can live with for the rest of your life.
Sure.
So once you discover this is their weakness during courtship, there are couples who say, I don't think I can stand that for the rest of my life. So based on these grounds, I think we should call it quits. And there are those who don't even agree. Let's say you've discussed the topic of faith and their belief systems, and they discover they can't agree on who moves, especially if they're coming from different faith and beliefs, different religions that is, and they can't agree. So somebody says, I'm not moving, the other person says, I'm not moving either. So what do we do? And according to me, the man says you should convert to my religion. The lady says, why should I? I don't want to. This is how I was raised, and I can't compromise on this. So once they reach a level that we call irreconcilable differences, then they can decide either to compromise or to move on with into the marriage. But that compromise must be agreed upon. It's not something you sweep under the carpet. So premarital counseling is not for sweeping issues under the carpet. It's for bringing every dark issue onto the table and laying it bare and saying, this is what I believe, this is what I stand for, this is who I am. So take me or leave me, but this is who I am. So it's not, we are past the superficial layer of the dating phase, where everybody is just good and holy and clean and nice. Now we are laying the bare truth on the table, and you're deciding on whether this is something you want for the rest of your life or it's something that you don't want. Yes.
In regards to what you're talking about right now, have you ever had cases whereby this couple came in, you had a discussion, went through everything, sort of compromising, like the one you're saying about religion. I'm Muslim, he's Christian, or the other way around, and we decide your faith, your religion, your style, I'm good to go. But again, also that affects the children, because that is, I might be going to the mosque, he might be going to the church, and we are good to go. But when the children come, they have to decide. Do we leave it to the children to make decision, or do we have to agree at that stage? And another question to add on to that, do we have, in such cases now, whereby we moved in marriage, we had agreed on this. Taking the example of religion, we have agreed maybe they're going to go maybe to the church or to the mosque. But when they come actually, and reality dawns that this is no longer the story of agreeing to disagree, and now you have the children who come, they go to the mosque, they realize, madrasa is too hard for me, I'd rather go to the church, and all the other way around, and now you have to go back to the table again and sit and discuss, and also find the one you're saying, this one, it's things that are not workable, and they decide to quit at that time. Or what do they do next?
Let me put it this way, that marriage is not an event. Marriage is not the marriage ceremony, it's not the roratio, it's not the wedding.
Sure.
So decisions that are being made during premarital counseling are decisions that will affect you for the rest of your life, together as a couple.
Sure.
And number two cannot work together unless they agree.
Sure.
So if they're not agreeing from the premarital counseling, it will be dangerous to move into marriage with that unresolved conflict, because it's like sweeping your disagreement under the rug. It will still come to surface. It will stink someday. And so when you're talking about children coming into a relationship that already there is a conflict, there are unresolved differences, that's a very dangerous place to be, because that conflict has to be resolved either way. So it is rather couples actually agree on matters before they get into marriage, instead of waiting until they get into the marriage to start making those decisions. Because either way, we have to look at marriage as an institution. Every institution, including this one that we are in right now, has common goals. An institution has core values, beliefs and norms that are common to all people in that institution. So they stand on that as an institution. They have a mission statement. They have a vision on where they want to be. So if you look at marriage as an institution, then all these things come into play. A good marriage has core values. There are things that the two of you agree on, that these are things we stand by. So for example, faith, this is our faith as a family. So you can't go with differences into the union. Otherwise, it will be an institution that is unstable because it doesn't have common values, doesn't have common interests. So everybody is doing their own thing, and so it's not a union in the end.
And let me ask this on the same. This one, you've said that we are getting into marriage with unresolved differences. But in my thinking, I'm bringing this out in the sense of, we have agreed in the premarital counseling, whereby I'll maintain my faith, you'll maintain your faith. We have no issue with that. And maybe even have discussed, when the children come, we'll introduce them to this and to this, and when they leave, they attain a certain age of making or maybe understanding, this is what I want, this is not working for me, they can make their own decision. Maybe that is what we have agreed at the premarital counseling and also before getting into marriage. But when the reality hits or dawn, or when we are currently in this situation of this phrase, then things are not working as to how we had planned before or envisioned before. Because also our children are different from us.
True.
What happens then?
Our children are different from us. They are individuals with personalities. And as parents, our duty is not actually to influence them in any way other than to parent them, meaning guiding them on a set of values and norms that they can grow into responsible citizens or responsible human beings who are self-reliant. So that's basically what parenting is, guiding the children in the way they should go. But now here is the problem. If parenting is guiding a child in the way they should go, what happens in the situation where both parents have not agreed on which way to go? You see where the problem is now. Because we are parenting, yes, we are saying we are parenting our children, but the two of us are not going in the same direction. So in which direction are we leading them? Because parenting is leading a child in the way they should go. So that is a conflict in itself. So the mother will say, I think I'll take them to church. The father says, no, I'm a Muslim, my children will go to the mosque. So already you have a conflict, which cannot be resolved unless the two of you agree. So eventually we go back to where we started, which is you have to agree on some common ground before you get into marriage. Don't wait until you get into marriage to decide. And again, when making these decisions during premarital counseling, I'd warn couples against making very superficial decisions. We need to go in depth, like we said, like lay bare what it is you really stand for. What are the negotiables? What are the non-negotiables? So that the other person knows. Don't agree superficially only to disagree later. Because that is basically the situation you're painting, where you say, I'm cool. Oh, you're that? I'm this? I'm cool. It's okay. We can just live. And then when reality hits, you realize, no, we are not cool. We are not cool. I'm not okay with you doing that.
A question as you take a break. The non-negotiables, the deal breakers, the bonuses that you are talking about when you are making this crucial decision. Do we discuss them in the premarital counseling?
Yes, actually deal breakers should start way before even you go to premarital counseling.
Should I just come out clean and tell you, this one is working for me, this one is not working for me? I thought that is something I keep to myself and look and analyze and say.
No, it's good to communicate. Because the other person can't read your mind and you can't read the other person's mind.
What if I tell you and you start telling me I'm going to change, I'm going to work on this, and yet that is only to please me, but in the long run you're not going to keep up with the run?
That's why dating and premarital counseling is a process. It takes time. During that time, we will actually know whether you are changing or not, whether you're working on it or not.
Let us take a break. Viewer, yes. I hope you're learning as much as I am. Interact with us across all our social media networks. That's GBS TV Africa. Our SMS line is 21144. We'll be back shortly.